call the meeting of the Arlington Finance Committee to order. We'll deal with the minutes at our next meeting. I just wanted to bring up with you, there was another meeting of the Long Range Planning Committee, and if you have your long range plan from last time, there was one change. It's a good change. The free cash, the actual free cash came in, and it was higher than anticipated, and so the free cash that is being used under fiscal 2018, instead of whatever the number was there before, it's now make sure I get this, 4,850,566. 4,850,566. And the override, the money from the override stabilization fund that we have to take from it is now 57,401. So that reduced it by about $300,000, which is good. It is my goal, not a very huge goal. I don't want to take any money from it. So I'd like to come up with $57,401 of savings. It shouldn't be too hard. We've got a $112 million budget. And then if we have any other savings beyond that, obviously our budget of is snow and ice, which I assume we'll be using some tomorrow. Okay, so any questions on that? So that, to my knowledge, that's the only change was that, and I think everything is set on this. We have no meetings on long-range planning coming up, so I think that's the budget sort of parameters that we'll be looking at. We could see a couple of more things. One is health insurance, because the health insurance numbers I think start coming in April, March and April, from the GIC, the Group Insurance Commission. And if those are higher or lower, obviously this will be adjusted one way or the other for that. We'll have to see what the House Ways and Means Committee does. That's our final preview on assessments and local aid. So that we'll have to wait for those things. Otherwise, it's all in our hands right now. One thing we went through is we're just not getting the money from Chapter 70 we were hoping. We have this large increase in number of students, but all we're getting is $20 a student. In other words, we're a minimum aid community, so that's not helping us very much. Okay. Hearings. At 7:45 is the Arts Council. Are they here yet, Liz?
No. Oh, yes, one woman is, yes.
Okay. Well, why don't you invite her in, and
Excuse me.
maybe you take a quick look at the handout that she just gave. One thing just to let you know, on the forward calendar, we'll be meeting every Monday and Wednesday through February and March, provided we have budgets and things to work on. We'll not meet President's birthday that Monday, and we will not be meeting the first week in April. There'll be no meetings the first week in April. So if you want to plan a trip to get out of town for a week, that's the week to do it. Well, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so this is the Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture, and they have a handout. Last week we had the Arlington Public Arts in, and we asked them a lot of questions, and we've arranged for them to come back in. When are they coming, Liz? The 22nd?
Yes.
I think that's it.
Yes.
To look at these. and I think we have to take a good look at all of these various programs and how they work together. But for now, let me turn it over to our spokesman. Could you introduce yourself and then go on to your presentation?
All right, I'm Stephanie Marlin Curiel. I'm co-chair of the Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture.
And I'm Adria Arch. I am also now a co-chair with Stephanie of Commission on Arts and Culture.
As you may be aware, we have been involved in a cultural planning process over the past year. Thanks to some money that you had granted us in the last couple of years, we were able to leverage that money and get a technical assistant grant from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and we've been doing a cultural plan, which is part of our charge as a commission. With them, there have been focus groups and surveys. And we're having some public meetings coming up. The first one is March 1st. We are also doing an organizational plan using community block grant funds and a bit of our money also to organize all the arts organizations, so that hopefully by next year you won't be getting multiple requests from multiple organizations. So our plan is to really organize everybody and get us all on the same page in a coordinated fashion and to use our priorities. So this next phase that we're asking for is part of the implementation phase of the cultural plan. One of the things that has been brought up again and again at every public meeting we've had is that we need a centralized communications tool. And also we know that the public is extremely confused about who does what, and that, which organization is which, and why are there so many different arts organizations with very similar letters. So if we have one website, one communications tool with an overarching brand name and message, that this will help, we think, allay confusion. People are looking for a go-to website, a place where they can find all the information that they need on arts and culture, something that would include a calendar. And also we've heard now through some of our focus groups, ways for artists to connect with one another, to know what spaces in town are available for exhibit space or rehearsal space or performance space. And we have, as we've written, sort of several aspirations for this website to not just be a tool for the public to understand what there is going on in Arlington, but also, as I mentioned, to connect artists together. There would be a directory of artists and an online public art gallery with a cultural map and possibly a place where we could list promotions, so that if restaurants were offering a discount with tickets to a certain show or something like that, some kind of other arts incentives, we might publicize them through this. It could be a way to collect donations. We would have a donations button on there, so people, when they're looking at all the wonderful things going on in town, could just decide to donate right there, and it would go into one pot that we would then divvy up. And then also we would be able to measure the impact of arts and culture, because we could measure the number of the donations, the number of clicks on this, that, or the other, and make it interactive. People could put comments on pieces that they saw or something like that, so that we would really get a sense of how much people are engaging in arts and culture. And if restaurants are putting incentives, discounts on there, then measuring that too, how many times people have taken advantage of that kind of thing, would also help with our data collection. So I think that's pretty much it. Well, actually, it's not quite it, because I want to say that it's really not just about a website, designing a website. This is a process that, if it's going to be done properly, it needs a branding consultant, and not just a web designer, not just any old logo. We need a process where first we're bringing all the organizations together. That we have a consultant for. That's planning that we're already doing. But then we need to agree on a brand. We need to agree on messaging that works for everybody. We need to agree on that design. If we don't take the steps to find out, what is the story that we're trying to tell? Who are we telling it to? How do we tell our story to visitors, to residents, to the various different audiences that we might have? And how are we going to talk about it? And what does it look like? What will then our story look like as a design element? What is the logo that would represent it all? And then think about how we're going to promote this website, how we're going to market it, how we're going to reach different audiences, and how we're going to make it the go-to site for arts and culture in Arlington. If we don't do this right, it will fail like so many other websites have failed, and the consensus may not, which is not, if it's not done as a real consensus building process, then it might factionalize all over again, and people might split apart, and, and the site will not be properly supported, and
And in addition,
coalition.
we're working on the cultural district designation, and this site will really support all the things that have gone into that. And that's something that goes to the Mass Cultural Council, and the town and the Board of Selectmen have signed a document agreeing to support that. So this is part of our big plan where all the arts groups that you had asked, how are we all functioning together? Well, we are finally beginning to function together thanks to this particular commission. Because so long we've had so many wonderful groups, but they weren't talking to each other. They were having events on the same nights. They were all of us are trying to get the same money from the same groups of people over and over again. Finally, this is a way to bring them all together, and not only that, to elevate what we have here in Arlington, because it's so precious and really excellent. So people will come here, spend money, go to the restaurants and other amenities that surround some of these arts and culture activities. We just feel real strongly that this is the next step for where we've been going, all the funding, all the efforts we've been putting toward this for the last 4 years we've been working together. Anyway, that's the big vision is really there, and all the arts groups are really aware of that.
I just want to make sure everyone is aware of the cultural district process, the cultural district designation application. Are you all aware of that? Okay, so that's really important to know. So last year we managed to put together a managing partnership for the cultural district. Cultural district is a small, well, not small necessarily, but a walkable area, a walkable, geographically defined area with a certain density of cultural assets and offerings. So this is a designation that's given by the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and we decided that we should apply for it because we have so many wonderful cultural resources in Arlington, and that we should be known for that. And the other reason that we should apply is we felt like it would give us an organizational structure and position us better to apply for grants in the future. Some larger grants to help support ourselves. So we put together, because you have to get this managing partnership together, and those are the kinds of partnerships that granting organizations are looking for. So the partnership includes the Chamber of Commerce, the Robbins Library Director, the Arlington Center for the Arts Director, Arlington Friends of the Drama, St. John's Coffee House, the Dallin Museum, Cyrus Dallin Art Museum, the Capitol Square District, Jan Whitted from the Capitol Square District, the Arlington Center Merchants Association, the Arlington International Film Festival, and a few others. It's a good about 15 partners in here. So it's a wonderful group, and they're eager to get started. We are waiting the official designation, but we have heard that once the Arlington Center for the Arts' move is secure and in place, that we will be getting the designation. We do not know yet what the borders of the district will be, but we will get a designation for a certain part of Arlington. This puts us on the website of the MCC and on a tourism website, and it also just allows us to it's one part of, a big part of the story of the arts in Arlington that will allow us to publicize the arts in all of Arlington. So this, we will have a map, a cultural map that we can hand out, but it will have a line around the district, but it will include all even events, entities that are in the Heights and all over, even outside the cultural district.
Mary Margaret?
So are you going to do that in lieu of having that last time you were here, you were talking about having a person come
That's
in?
different.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a
Yeah,
whole different thing.
yeah.
All right, sorry.
I'm just, Alan?
Well, looking at the budget, after the $10,000 in branding and marketing, $5,000 for the web design, what's the plan to fill it with content and then maintain that content year to year?
Excellent question. We will, at the end of this cultural plan, we will have a strategic plan for an organization. We hope that by then, we might be able to, we might have a town paid staff member to do this. If not, then we will apply for a grant to maintain the website, or probably some combination.
Yeah, and do you have a number in mind for that? An annual number
For how much that would
to
cost?
maintain the content, events and, maintain the calendar and announcements and things like that.
We were guesstimating. We made a guesstimate. 5 hours a week. Pay somebody something like $12 an hour, so about $3,000 for a year, something like that.
Yes.
I don't, it's not a lot of work, but we really understand that a website by itself, without the marketing, without social media, driving people to it, is worthless. So it's such an important component, but we felt like we weren't ready. We won't be ready to do that quite yet.
It's important to keep it updated.
Absolutely.
It's really
Oh,
it's everything
absolutely,
about.
no.
Updating is everything.
That's right.
Yeah, especially with a calendar. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, our goal ultimately is to have
Staff person.
one paid staff person to do this and just to be a coordinator. Yes.
John?
Are you coordinating with the tourism commission?
They are one of the organizations that is going to be part of this cultural planning process that's bringing us all together. So yes,
Yep.
yes. Yes.
Grant?
Where did you come up with the amount for $5,000 for the web designer?
Yeah, I've talked to 2 designers, and this is a number that can, as you all probably know, can be much, much larger. This is sort of a medium price, based on people who understand, this would be for a nonprofit, they charge different things for, different kinds of clients. So this was a guesstimate of something that would be probably about what we would be looking for. So
Yeah, same thing with the brand consultant. I mean, $10,000 is not a lot for a brand consultant. People pay $20,000 to $30,000 for that, but working with people who specialize in nonprofits and the arts, you can work something out.
Christine?
Maybe I missed this, but right now there's a cultural planning process
Happening
ongoing.
right now.
And the goal of that is to unite all of these different organizations that are involved in one way or the other with the arts.
Well, there are 2 cultural planning processes happening right now, both of which will be finished in June. Will be ready in June, so just in time for us to come in next fiscal year with this project, next stage. So the one cultural planning process with Metropolitan Area Planning Council is working on, what is the future of the arts in Arlington and how to build that future. And the other one is working on specifically with the organizations and the organizational structure.
The structure of the organizations or the structure of a organization?
This is a process. We don't know what it's going to look like at the end. We have been looking at a model, East Hampton City Arts and also the Cape Cod Arts Collaborative, which are towns which have gone through very similar processes such as ours. There were several volunteer arts organizations. They decided to get together and form one organization. And I know East Hampton City Arts is sort of eerily similar, and that they ended up with one staff person with many volunteers on different committees. Covering different areas like public art, programming, etc. And they have one staff person, one coordinator, and they support themselves largely through Adams grants.
And you have a consultant helping you with that process?
We have TDC, which is a very reputable consultant in this area.
And how do you finance that consultant?
The consultant that's doing the organizational plan is through the community block grant funds. The town planner, Jenny Raitt, has been finding our consultants and working with us and really driving these plans.
And who do you envision will be ultimately responsible for this website?
Well, we hope that we would oversee it, but that it would be staffed by someone in the town.
Right, you expect the Commission on Arts and Culture to be the...
Well, it would be whatever this organization turns out to be. I don't know if the Commission on Arts and Culture would be operating as a separate entity at that point.
So what do you say to the argument that this is premature?
Oh, not at all. It's right on time because these cultural plans are all due in June. These reports are due in June. And even if we're not one organization, we still want to market the arts all together. As a go-to, centralized website. That's been said from way before, from Arlington, from 2012, our first, big public meeting on the arts in Arlington with 80 people there. I mean, that was one of the top 3 goals. So it's actually been a long time in coming.
And we spent this whole year working on a cultural plan, which is something that we were tasked to do. So this isn't putting the cart before the horse at all. I think we're right in ready to do something like this, based on these kinds of things we're finding out, and also based on the imminent granting of a cultural district designation. So I find it's really exciting time for the arts in Arlington, where we're so rich, we've been so disorganized for so long, that we're finally finding a way to bring everything together and move forward and just be shining with all the things that we have here.
I'm sorry, Peter, go ahead.
Did you say East Hampton is a good model for Arlington in this area?
Well, as far as their arts organization, the way it's
What's the
organized.
relationship between the arts organization in East Hampton and the town, East Hampton?
I don't recall. I can get you that information. Honestly, I don't recall that piece of it.
Do you?
Go ahead.
Okay. Do you have? You have all these different organizations. Is there kind of a master council that meets like once a month to coordinate activities?
Not yet, but that's what will
coming.
happen. Yes.
But shouldn't that happen before you go out and spend a lot of money on a website?
Well, it will have happened by the time this money comes through. That because we are doing that right now with TDC, that they will be bringing all these organizations together, and we will have a plan that we've all come together and agreed upon by June.
Okay, will all these organizations chip in some money?
If they have budgets.
Well,
And they haven't been spoken for next year yet. I mean, I don't know if they can chip in like this fiscal year, because I imagine.
well, this is
they've
next
already
fiscal year
put
we're
in
talking
their-
about.
Right, so I don't know whether their budgets have not already been spoken for in other ways. If they have budgets, like the Arlington Cultural Council, for example, gets no money from the town, so they don't have money to chip into this. Arlington Public Art, they're trying to chip in for their other requests,
Right.
for their other requests. So,
It's
and
all
they
possible,
also create public
it does
art.
make
So
sense,
it's,
but we're not talking about large amounts of money from any of these organizations.
I know, but nobody ever seems to be able to raise it. If
that's because we're not working together yet, but
Yeah.
Okay.
we
Yeah.
will be. We will be.
Have you
Writing
set-
grants and everything.
okay, you're basically saying the website will be of no use unless you've got a part-time town employee to maintain it.
Well, if we don't, then we will apply for a grant to pay someone to maintain it. We're very well positioned now to apply for grants of that kind.
Okay, have you reapplied for the Metropolitan Area Planning Council?
No, we're working with them currently, so, and they wouldn't fund this kind of thing, I don't think.
The
but-
second time, but, you know.
Okay. And are you applying for community development block grant money?
Not at this time. Again, I'm not sure, I don't remember what Jenny said about that. I'm not sure if this function would be eligible under community block grant funds, but we can certainly ask.
Well, you got 5,000 from them this year.
I know, but that was toward
The cultural plan.
toward the cultural plan. Whether that can also cover a web master for this, I don't know, but that's a great question. I certainly could ask. But that doesn't cover the web design and that kind of stuff. Maybe.
Have you sat down with the town manager and the IT department on this whole idea of a website?
We've sat down with we've spoken to the town manager about it. Do you mean the town IT department, whether, we don't feel that this website could be part of the town website, just because it would be too difficult to find. It would not have the right look and feel. It would not have the functionality that we're looking for. So I don't think, we
And the
haven't
ease of
spoken to the town
updating and
ID.
with a calendar and all the rest of that stuff, videos, all kinds of things that we want to populate the website with.
It would seem to me it would be important for you to have some presence on the town website and then a link to your website.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
I'm sure
We would
they
have
would,
that.
yeah, I'm sure that, they would list the arts organization or consortium or whatever it is, and then a link to our website, yeah. Sure.
Now, I'm reasonably sure the Arlington Center for the Arts has their own website,
They do.
okay, and the Capitol Theater,
Yeah.
and the theater in the center,
Yeah.
as well as the one on Academy Street?
The region.
The Region,
Yeah.
right.
And then the children, the
Yes.
Academy drama is the one on the Academy.
Right. So I assume they have their own websites.
Yeah.
So is the Historical Society,
Yeah.
and the Schwalm Mill.
Yeah, so all these other websites around, how is this one going to sort of poke its head up between them and get attention?
Because people will prefer to go to one place to find everything rather than having to go to all these different websites. So it would be partly that, but that's also why the brand consultant will come up with that marketing communications plan to make sure that it becomes the go-to site.
And I also want to add that we discovered that having a website is crucial for getting grants for Arlington Public Art, which you know me from having come last week about that. A lot of the grants that our public art manager got from the New England Foundation for the Arts and Mass Cultural Council specifically, they would not have looked at us if we hadn't had a website. They wouldn't have taken us seriously. So it's super important to have something like this so that prospective funders can say, oh, look at all of the things that Arlington's been doing. They are working together. They are working with the town to present a cohesive idea, presentation, and leveraging money, taking money that they get from the cultural council, and hopefully making more of that. Finding other sources. So I really think the time has come. Yes.
So I guess I'm a little uncomfortable that for both the branding item and the web designer item, the estimates seem a little, when you've used the word yourself, that they're guesstimates. So one, how confident are you that you can get the services you need, the branding services for the 10,000 and the website design?
Pretty
Confident. I just spoke
5,000.
to a branding consultant today, Michelle Needy, who's worked. She worked on the Cultural District application for Natick. She worked on branding, messaging for Central Square before they applied for their Cultural District designation. And she's a nonprofit consultant with a specialization in arts, or it was like a love of the arts. And so she was the person I was referring to, who said that we could get it done for 15. Both things.
And then I'm picking up what Alan was saying. I'm uncomfortable that you don't have a more solid plan for maintaining the website going forward, the content and the website itself. You're right that a website is really important, and if you want it to be the go-to site, critical that content on that site be absolutely current, or people aren't going to go to it.
Right,
And
yeah.
prospective funders, if they get a whiff that the content is stale or not maintained, or reflect really badly on them.
Well, we have
So,
time, sorry.
You seem a little vague on kind of what the plan is for making sure that the content is.
I don't think
Up to
it's
date.
vague. I think the source of funding is a little vague, but
Well-
that's the only thing that's vague.
Kind of ends up being
I
the same
totally
thing.
know that how important, we all really understand the importance of it because we've seen it all happen. I mean, I run the Arlington Public Arts website, and I'm it. And when I don't, I think a lot of people probably don't see it because I've lost my energy to put stuff out all the time on Facebook. I can't do it. This is why, especially today with all the social media, you really need a dedicated person to do it. We actually had a volunteer try to do some of this. We hired a volunteer to help try to put together a calendar. We were in such desperate straits to just see if it would happen. She had a baby. That person is, she's not available to do it anymore. She was really, doing it, a young person, trying to, wanting to, find a job and such a thing. I mean, it's possible we could do that, but we definitely see, there's no question that we see the need for constant update and social media.
This is highly possible that it will come from the town because that's the reason. I know Jenny mentioned it in the meeting the other day, and because we're doing the cultural plan process, which is going to make recommendations to the town, and this staff person will be part of those recommendations, as will be the website. I already know that from speaking to the consultants and from the focus groups and the meetings that we've had. So it may very well come from the town, and if it doesn't, I think we have it within us to raise $5,000 to hire someone to do it, at least for the first year until we can, in larger things. I'm confident that we can do it, and we certainly do know that it's necessary.
Grant?
Sort of two parts, but fair to say, I appreciate that you did, in fact, you've identified the marketing individual, or at least one who has gotten that. And it does sound like you've also identified a web designer or two, and that price range is okay for the type of site you're looking for. So all the 25 arts and culture organizations, or more of them, you listed the number of them. I understand there's some overlap, but will all of them have representation on the site?
Oh, definitely. First of all, there are 5 organizations that we're working with through that cultural plan, but of course, the website will represent all arts and culture in Arlington, all the, the nonprofits and, the ACA, all the theaters, all the music studios, all the galleries, or anything like that. Well, of course, that's the goal, is to be a comprehensive site.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when a new one comes up,
Yeah. Oh, it will be added, of course.
We are the umbrella. Yeah, that's what we are.
how would they get added? Would they have to contact you, or?
Contact us or the webmaster. Contact.
All right, thanks.
Okay, are there any other questions? Peter?
I know that some of the people that you mentioned, the organizations you mentioned, of them 15 partners, have budgets that could make a modest contribution, which would seem to me to give it some credibility to the whole thing.
Yeah,
You've got some money in the game, if you're in the game.
that's true too.
Well, that's true. Also, yeah, there are ways to, once you have a website, there are ways to raise money too, to, have people buy memberships or whatever
Right,
to
exactly.
help maintain the website.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks so much.
We'll be getting back to you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Is Lisa out there?
Yeah.
We're going to have the arts public, okay.
Hello,
Mr. Greco,
how are we?
where's your alter ego?
So John Bellifer isn't here. I'm figuring that's why there's not as many seats filled. Just me instead of John. I don't really pack them in, I guess, you know what I mean? So thank you for having me. We have 2 articles, and I was just going to give some handouts to you, if that's okay. Give you some information, make sure everyone's up to snuff. Okay, there's 3 for everybody. There's 3 pieces for everybody. Can we do OPEB first, Mr. Chairman? Just
Yep.
because that's what
Hold
I'm
on a
passing out
second, let
first,
me-
yeah.
Find, okay, Article 52.
What's the other article on what's that?
Okay, so it's Article 52. The first one we'll do is OPEB. So where's John now?
John left yesterday, I think. He got out just before the storm to go to Florida.
Timing is everything.
Timing's everything in life, you know? I talked to Mrs. Bellifer. She said the car already went down. She goes, I wanted to hide in the trunk and go down with it, but she had to wait for John.
Well, we tell him we missed him.
I will, absolutely. Absolutely. So-
Okay, OPEB.
Okay, so OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits, based on a GASB ruling. The town, did I not make enough?
No, you did, I just
Okay.
went and got down to Al.
Oh, okay. And requires the town to fund the other post-employment benefits, the retirees' health care, to have it off the balance sheet eventually. So, the purpose of it is, by funding it, you're helping the town with the bond ratings and the financial situation, because when anyone goes out to it, they ask, are you addressing your OPEB? In 2005, the town meeting has passed special legislation that put the investment portion of it under the retirement board. So that's why you get me every year to come here and ask you how much money we can put towards it. There's 2 mechanisms. The first one is the non-contributory payroll, which is people that worked before the contributory retirement board was established in 1939. You get paid weekly by the town. They're not in my system. So people years ago started budgeting $500,000, and unfortunately, as in my business, retirees pass away, and you go along, they use the difference to help fund the OPEB. So this year, out of the $500,000, the first sheet I handed out, the 3 non-contributory retirees that are still left, the payroll is $81,000. Minus $500,000, that gives you $418,734. There was also an agreement, I started saying a few years back, seeing this is my 16th time in front of you guys. It's a few more years back in the early 2000s that there was an agreement when the health insurance went from 5 to 10% or 10 to 15% on the retirees. There was an agreement that there would be a formula that some of that money would go to OPEB. And what came of it was about $155,000, and that's pretty much what's stuck as a figure that's used. So the $418,734 and the $155,000 comes to $573,734. That's the minimum. The last few years, the town manager, through other calculations and so forth, we've been able to get a few extra $100,000, and we usually get about $800,000 to put in there. But tonight, I can only say that the commitment is $573,734. I'm sorry, $573,734.
I'm sorry, could you explain that again?
How we come up with that figure?
Yeah.
Sure. The 418 is what's left over from the normal trip, the 500,000 minus 81,000. And then the formula for the uptick in the health insurance contribution by the retirees is $155,000.
Yep.
So that makes the minimum 573,
Okay.
734, and then usually the managers and you guys talk later, and there's money, a little bit more goes into it. Yes? You look like you had a question.
No, I was just thinking in my head, like, because I think the last piece that we put in, which is the third bucket, came from didn't that come from when we went into the GIC or when we moved the
Yeah, because the
retirees?
trust fund was no longer needed, and we had about $3 million in the health insurance trust fund.
Yeah.
But rather than just take the whole $3 million and put it into this, the manager, in case we all of a sudden wanted to go out of the GIC and back into our former plan, he didn't want to take the whole $3 million. So we've been taking $300,000 a year out of the health insurance trust fund into the OPEB fund.
Yeah.
Plus the 155, plus the 518.
418, yeah.
418. I'm trying to remember last year if we had.
Last year it ended up being about $860,000.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you're looking at what-
About 300,000, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what's the 155?
So the 155 was probably, I'm going to say 10 to 12 years ago, there was an uptick in the contribution by the retirees on their health insurance. And to, some of that increase, the money was set aside for the OPEB. And at that time, it worked out the formula to about 155,000. And it's kind of just been the set figure going forward since then for it.
The manager recommended that to the Board of Selectmen that they reduce the town share of retiree health from 90% to 90 to 85, which means the retirees now had to pay 15% instead of 10%. The selectmen voted, yes, they'll do that, but only if that savings money goes into the OPEB fund. If we ever didn't put it into the OPEB fund, they'll go back to 90%. At least that was the threat at the time.
So that's how we come up with the funding on that. I just passed out a couple other pieces here just for information, for transparency. The 1/1/2016 OPEB valuation has been done. It'll be submitted to PERAC Friday, apparently now, because I don't think we'll be there tomorrow. And basically, it has to be done every 2 years by law. Stone Consulting, who also does the valuation for the pension fund, does the calculation every 2 years as required by law. And these are the figures. And it's 1/1/2016 because they close it down and use the data from the previous 2 years. So that's why it's that date. So the next one will be 1/1/2018. So everything's based on presumptions because you're using data that actually happened, but we don't know what the future holds.
So we now have 10,372,627.87.
So on the third page, yep, Mr. Chairman, as of December 31st, we had 10,372,627. And I know Mr. Howard in the past has asked me what is in the Vanguard fund. So that sheet shows you what we're invested in a little bit. It's pretty much mutual funds until we get to about $20 million when they think of becoming active is kind of the benchmark that Makita, the investment advisory firm, is using right now.
Looks like you're mostly in index funds.
Correct. When they get to 20 million, the thought was whether or not to get into other funds. That's why it's hard to compare it to the PRIT fund, because PRIT's in private equities, real estates, hedge funds, and a lot more active and so forth, and different items. So we meet with them. Unfortunately, because of a conflict, we didn't get to meet with them in January. They won't be in until March. So I don't have a return number right now. I did ask them today, but I didn't hear back from them. They'll tell us, based on what we're anticipating from town meeting, what to do and how to rebalance, as far as that goes with the different indexes and so forth. So.
Are there any questions? Peter?
Yes.
I think I may have missed something.
Yeah.
Is that third source dried up now, the original healthcare account?
That's something on the town side. I'm not aware of it being.
So that's another 300,000?
That would be the other 300,000, yeah. That's what we've been doing. I don't know if there's anything left in that or not. Yeah. because that's town money, I have no access to that or anything being in retirement. So that's OPEB.
Okay, any other questions on OPEB?
All right, we gotta,
Okay, and now we're on Article 50,
Liz, can I bother you
51.
again to, this is, sorry. It's, read for everyone again. This one. So, Liz is kindly is handing out some backup on the overall fund, because there is obviously an appropriation down the road that we'll talk about. But as far as 90A C and D goes, 90A C and D is a section, and E is a section of the law of Chapter 32, which governs the retirement boards, that allows municipalities to adopt and accept the funding for people or members that have served the town of Arlington for 25 years or were an accidental disability, hurt on the job. What this is designed to do is people that spent a full career here, or in whatever municipalities adopted, that they would not fall below 50% of the job they retired from. So, over the course of time, the pensions don't keep up with the cost of inflation stuff. The COLA is right now at 3% of $15,000, or $450 is the max someone gets for a raise. We have 607 retirees and survivors, accidental disability retirees, on the last month's payroll, retirement payroll. And of that, approximately 268 people were eligible for this benefit. About 52 of them got it at a cost of $15,000 that it increased the payroll. That works out to 0.136% of the $11,268,000 appropriation. Why do I bring that up? The new comptroller, Mr. Viscay, was concerned that when you put in your article, when we put in the article, it says zero. The zero, my understanding, which has been there as long as I know, is because whether this gets voted or not, the appropriation is not going to change. The appropriation goes up 5.5% every year. The cost of it, which we always talk about at the subcommittee meetings with Charlie and Carolyn White and everybody, and others that come to them, is that it increases the payroll for $15,000. I'm not telling you how to write it or anything like that, but Mr. Viscay asked me to just mention that to everybody. So that's basically how the benefit works. We also, with the chairman of the Finance Committee, the chairman of the Retirement Board, myself, worked on it and made it a little different in Arlington, so that a person has to be at 50% before they're eligible for it. The system is a defined benefit program which works on age and years of service. So in the past, people would hit 25 years, they wouldn't be at 50%, they could retire on one day and in July pop up. And that was never what the benefit was intended to do. The benefit was intended to help long-term employees that had longevity in retirement, didn't get into the poverty level. So I just wanted to make sure that everything was on board and clear to everybody. So that's how 90A C and D works. It's an interesting benefit. We have someone that retired in 1993 that passed away in 2016, never got the benefit. We have someone that's been retired 16 years, never got the benefit. Because we give COLAs consistently, not as many people get it as before, because you pay the COLA first, and then I assess through the 260 people if they've fallen below 50% of what their job is paying. Last year was at the 2% raise, it was approximately $15,000. It was a little bit less because two of the people that were projected in July did not finish the year. So.
Okay, are there any questions from the committee? I guess we've been looking at this article for enough years.
I just celebrated my 16th year in January, and 16 years, these are pretty much the only two articles I keep coming in front of you. Sorry, I can't be more exciting than that.
Ever since, I can't remember his name, Joe Rosselli?
Yep.
Ever since he left,
Yep.
you know, he would always have the,
God rest his soul.
Look
You know
at
he passed
every-
away in October, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I know, but he was, yeah.
He looked for every little,
He looked for everything. Yeah, if he saw a comma or something in the wrong position, he thought it changed the whole meaning of everything. So it was interesting. Former town meeting member and so forth. Couple of things I passed out to you, again, just for transparency. The first one that says Arlington Retirement Board appropriation by governmental units. That is the approved letter by PERAC, the Public Employee Retirement Administration Commission, that gets our actuarial data, double checks our actuary, and comes up with a number, and it is $11,268,184. That's paid to us in July. That is partially number paying for future benefits and current benefits. The $427,893 comes from the Housing Authority. The split is designed by the aggregated payroll in September. I take everybody that's in the system between the school and town, find out what they're getting for a salary, and then take the Housing Authority and split it. And of the number, 96.37% is school and town, and 3.63% is Housing Authority, and that's how we split up the $11,996,77. That's a standard practice across the Commonwealth. That's how it's done. The second page I gave you is the funding schedule. You see in 2018, the second to last column is the same number as we just mentioned, $11,996,077. As you can see, it goes up 5.5%. Hopefully, everything stays the same so that the split can remain the same, so we have a constant, everybody only goes up 5.5%. This year went up a little bit more because there were 11 new people on the payroll that weren't there last September on the town, and 23 on the school side in my system. I do not have teachers or the administration. I have teacher assistants, cafeteria workers, traffic supervisors, bus drivers, everybody that's not basically a teacher or in a certified position. Okay? So basically, that's how the number goes. We did have to add 2 years on this year because of the funds, the return numbers over the past years. We were assuming 7.5%. We dropped it down to 7.25%. By dropping it down to 7.25% and maintaining the commitment that myself, the chairman of the retirement board, Charlie Foskett, Carolyn White, and Adam Chapdelaine made to keep it at 5.5%, it had to go out 2 more years. Okay, the mandate is it has to be paid by 2040. So we've given ourselves some wiggle room for, God forbid, another anything like 2008, 2009. So we're not just up against it. Any questions on the funding schedule? Okay, and the last piece I gave
what
you.
starts bringing it down? So it goes up until 21.
Yep.
And then starts bringing it down.
Sure. So if you look at the very bottom there,
Yeah.
there's an asterisk that says includes recognition of following assets, gains, and losses fiscal 2019 to 2021. There is a process, and actuaries know much better about it than myself, called asset smoothing, whereas they take some of the losses or the gains and they smooth it out over the futures so you don't get too high or too low with you try to go for a middle line. When there were losses, we were able to smooth them out. So that's why you see them being addressed and figured until 2021, and then it starts going down because those losses are covered. A system has to be approximately 103% funded for there to be zero appropriation. The normal cost section is paying for what the current retirees right now, the anticipated cost when they get to retirement. The unfunded liability is a combination of both, based on projections and stuff. This report will be online at the PARAC website when it's approved. There is a link on the Arlington retirement page. If anybody wants it, you can always email me at rgreco@town.arlington.ma.us. I have it in PDF, and I'm happy to forward it to any of you who don't want it.
Okay, are there any questions?
Okay, and then the last page I just wanted to point out is the return number. Yes.
Are there historical reports on the PARC website as well?
Yeah.
Oh, so I used to know you for no reason at all every year when I asked for these.
Dean, as a fellow Belmont High alumni, you never bother me. You know? You can always call me. That's what they pay me for.
Thank you.
And so please, no, really. I enjoy when people call and talk to me. There's not a lot of people who want to call and talk retirement. You might be surprised.
Of course, they buried it. Well, where are you now?
Well,
Are you still in the high school?
So Alan, I don't make, this is an important meeting, I don't want to make light of it, but when I started here, I was 32 years old and they had me in the high school. I'm now 52 years old and they have me, well, I was 36 years old, excuse me. I'm now 52 years old and they have me in the senior center. So what do you think they're telling me? Yeah, well, I don't want to think. But
Worried if they put you in the cemetery.
yeah, right, that joke has been used, trust me. Basically, the superintendent and the former CFO decided that they wanted to expand the daycare. We were the odd person out. We were paying zero rent in the high school. We now signed a lease and pay $15,000 a year at the senior center. The retirees like it. It's a little more accessible. There's no locked doors. There's no bomb scares. There's no shutdowns and everything else that went along with being at the high school. And you don't have to worry about when the classes are changing, that you don't get spun around trying to get to my office, getting there and stuff. So it's a nice, cleaner office. It's much more space. We're happy with it. It is Arlington, and there is no parking, and depending what time it goes. So pretty much unless you have a driveway in Arlington, where is there parking, right? So that would be the only thing. But
What floor are you on?
First floor, ground floor. Come in on the Horseshoe side on Maple Street and go to the right. It's the former Housing Corp office.
Oh, okay.
So first floor, the space is bigger, it's handicap accessible and so forth, so that's where we are. My last piece of paper there is just the return numbers for the PRIT system. Last year, the 1 year number in December was 8.02. Please note at the top, the third line says gross of fees. Always when you hear the numbers in the Globe or the Herald or anything from the PRIT fund, deduct 0.55 from that number. They report it before their fees. So all those numbers that you're looking at, you have to back out 0.55. That's the basis points on it. So last year's number of 802 was more like 747 or something like that. So it was just shy of the 7.5% that we presumed. If they do that again this year, it'll be good because we're only presuming 7.25, so we'll have a positive. We've been in the system about 8 years. They give a 5 and 10 number. The inception number is not ours. The inception number is since the PRIT system was set up in the early 80s. Any questions?
So what would be, if we're looking at the chart on the percentages?
Sure.
Look at the
total core number, probably about the fourth one up from the bottom where it's a little bit highlighted and double lined there.
Yep.
Right
okay.
across there. So that's the total core number. The other numbers have cash. Because we have private equity, still contracts we couldn't get out of before we got into PRIT, we have State Street for a custodial bank and we use that. Some boards that are full boat into the PRIT system, we have about 90 some odd percent, high 90% in there. We'll put the cash in there and just have the money transferred out of there. Currently, though, we have private equities that use the euros and stuff, and Brit doesn't do that kind of stuff, so you have to have your own bank.
Okay, are there any other questions? Rich?
Thank you,
I'm
Walt.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, but I didn't understand your answer to Al's question about
Sure.
why the unfunded liability goes up and goes down.
So, over the past few years with the losses.
After you paid them,
No, as you know, when we met with the 2020 group, I love questions. So the loss, we had losses, and they were able to do what's called asset smoothing. They were able to not have to absorb all the losses each year. So if you look down at the bottom of the page, it says it recognizes the losses. So it's recognizing 200,000 of losses, 2.1 million and 2.1 million in 2021. So those numbers are baked into that unfunded liability. Come 2022, we'll absorb the losses and we're back kind of to a fresh start and it'll start going down. All the money will be going at the unfunded liability, not just the losses.
So,
Yeah.
so what's the loss in this world?
Investment losses because of the underperformance of it.
I see.
So instead of say, there's a 90 some odd % window they can use. Again, I'm talking about my head too, so please, I don't mean to sound like I'm an expert on that, but they're able to use that and kind of smooth out the losses, so we don't have to get it big this.
So as a reminder, I think it was a while ago. So the way the pension fund calculation used to work was that they would take in all the gains and losses in 1 year, and that they would then adjust the funding schedule accordingly. So if we remember back in 08, 09, so leading up from like 2000, 2007, that was great for us because the market was on a tear, and the year to full funding was pulling up closer and closer, and actually got to like 2020, I think. It was pretty.
It was. We were 73% funded in the crash. We
Right.
now have not reached the 140 that we were.
And then, so the market crashed, and we ran into this huge problem at that point, because had we done the actuarial report, it was gonna blow it way past what was then the full funding deadline, because the funding deadline wasn't 2040 back then, it was
2028.
It was 2028, and so what we did, if I recall, what happened was a few things. First, we skipped doing the actuarial report 1 year, because you only have to do it every other year, so just skipped it outright. And then when the retirement board came back, they implemented a different methodology, which was instead of taking 1 year's gains or losses and recording it that year, they were going to take each year and average it over 4 years.
Yeah.
So each year's gain would be, so if you gained, let's just say $10 million, you didn't take the 10 million, you took 2.5 million per year for 4 years. Then the following year, let's say you had a loss of $2 million. Then you just take 500,000 for 4 years. And from a smoothing perspective at the time, I think we realized pretty quickly, because I remember where I was reviewing it at that time, and
Yeah.
we were talking was, you would not only stave off what was going to be budgetary disaster because of the market crash and forestall it for a couple of years until we could get the legislation pushed to funding standard and whatnot, but even going forward, it would stop that from happening again.
The asset smoothing allows us to also maintain the 5.5%, because
Yeah.
if we had that volatile of numbers and have to keep coming back and changing it, we wouldn't be able to keep to our agreement. And so we made this agreement, and of course, if there's an override or something, there's talk of maybe could we look at having more money and getting this off the books quicker. That'll be addressed at this time, but given all things being equal, as they say in economics, right, it's 5.5 from here on out.
Okay, are there any other questions? Rich, thank you for coming down here.
Nice to see you, Mr. Chairman.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, everybody. Again, at the senior center, anyone wants to talk retirement, you know where to find me. And have a great night. I hear there's snow coming tomorrow. I don't know if anyone's heard that. It looked like it at Stop and Shop today. I don't know.
Bread and milk.
Bread and milk, yep, for the 1 day. All right.
Okay, take care. Hello,
Hello.
have a seat.
Thanks.
Introduce the new
Sure.
head of the Planning and Community Development.
I am Jenny Raid. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development. I've brought with me some copies of the master plan, which I'm not sure how many people here had copies, so that's why I brought them.
Okay,
If
why don't you leave the
want
mic off
me
to the
I'll
side?
leave them
and if-
here.
Does anybody need a master plan? Because I think,
You don't think you
okay.
have one?
Let's send one down there.
Anybody else?
Anybody else need one? We
No.
got them last time.
Okay, great. How about we have a contract right now with a consultant, RKG Associates, for zoning recodification. I only have 4 copies of this, but I'm happy to send it around electronically. So if anybody would like to see this.
Now, this is the,
This is a contract with RKG Associates that we currently have,
okay.
and I'll talk about that. And then I know I brought enough.
If you could,
What do you want me to do?
actually, if you could send it to Liz
I'll send it to Liz.
electronically, and then Liz send it out to everybody.
This one I have enough copies.
Okay.
Perfect. And that, what is going around is just simply a press announcement about the recent, what we're doing with zoning recodification right now. So Article 38, I know that you wanted to talk with me about sort of the costs, the understanding a little bit about the schedule and the need for the funding. That's my understanding.
Yep.
Correct?
Now, the manager was before us last week,
Yes.
and he said that the total cost was $55,000,
Right.
of which $15,000 would be needed just for advertising.
Right, so,
Okay, so why do we need this, number one? And when is it gonna start, I assume starting now, when is it planning to be implemented?
okay. Well, let me go back a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna just explain a little bit to everybody about the process. So the master plan, that is, many of you obviously already have a copy or have seen it or you're looking at it now. The master plan set forth policy goals and strategies for Arlington, including the need for zoning bylaw amendments. That was actually the number one recommendation, was to completely amend Arlington zoning bylaw. And that master plan included in one of the appendices a zoning audit. The zoning audit outlined the need for updates to the zoning bylaw to do a bunch of different things. Make it clearer to read, make it internally consistent so that things were not debatable in any different forum, reflect the master plan. So as in the master plan says we want to be this kind of community, make sure that the zoning actually reflects that. And then also comply with Mass General Law, Chapter 48. That's the Zoning Enabling Act for the state and also current case law. We want to make sure we're legal. That's what that's saying. So the audit recommended that the town reorganize and reformat the zoning bylaw to clarify and make obvious the procedures for things like site plans, environmental design review, special permits, variances, appeals, rezoning, and related tasks, to incorporate better illustrations, all kinds of things. So again, if you haven't looked at that audit, it's one of the appendices in the master plan. I think it's the very last one. That's what we're building all of this off of. And so in July of 2016, last year, the town, through its master plan implementation committee, formed a zoning recodification working group. Okay, and the zoning recodification working group includes people from inspectional services, from the Conservation Commission, various departments, town designees and representatives. So a pretty holistic group of people who are, and people from the Master Plan Implementation Committee as well, who have been working to advance the zoning bylaw amendments. The group's purpose is described as putting forth an RFP, getting a consultant on board, helping with community outreach and engagement on this process, and ultimately getting zoning bylaw amendments before a special town meeting, a future town meeting. So that's what they've been doing. We actually issued the RFP back in September. The deadline was in October. We interviewed and did reference checks back in October, hired RKG Associates in early November, and the contract was completed with them in December. And the contract is being paid, the whole contract is being paid for $50,000 out of Community Development Block Grant funds. So that's the source of funds, in case you're wondering, well, I've never heard of this before. I know the master plan, I know the Master Plan Implementation Committee, but I've never heard about this particular contract. It goes through the Community Development Block Grant process. It was part of the application for last year. So CDBG comes to town meeting every year, but you know, if you don't know what planning and zoning studies means, you might not have known that that's what that $50,000 meant. So we're using the $50,000 for that, and we hope to be completed with a complete recodification ready for a special fall town meeting this year. So it's a pretty fast timeline, but we need, in order to move forward and have proper notice, which means notification through advertisements of what we plan to change in the zoning. There are very clear requirements under 48 about how to do that. Depending upon how we choose as a town to do that, in other words, it's an entire soup to nuts redo of the zoning bylaw, we could end up spending a large sum of money. And so the number, I chose $15,000 because it's a variable number. And to print an entire page of advertising in, say, the Advocate is about $5,000. So I multiplied that number and came up with 15. If I ended up with the need to actually have that level and depth of advertising for the zoning bylaw, then I'd get to $15,000. And that's out of my typical allocated advertising budget in Planning and Redevelopment Board. It just well exceeds that number. It's almost completely more than the Redevelopment Board budget annually. So So henceforth, we wanted to have some way to actually say, how can we allocate the funds for such a significant zoning bylaw change moving forward? And so that's why you see the warrant article before you. So the $15,000, though, as I said, it's variable. We could print a notice that talks about how we're changing the zoning and the sections of the zoning and not go into great depth about every single one of those changes. And that would be allowed under current law. And that would also cost a lot less money in advertising. So the variability is somewhat contingent upon what decision we make when we are going to make it. And I don't have an answer to that yet because I'm not at the point where I actually have the zoning bylaw amended. So I can't say yet how I will be guided in terms of what needs to go into the notice. So that's the $15,000. I can talk about sort of the next phase of things, but maybe I want to pause there and see if you have questions about the legal notice, questions about the master plan process, or the zoning recodification to date before I go further. Any questions?
How much is, well, I guess this feeds into,
Yep.
how much is the total contract? How far does the $50,000 from Community Development Block Grant get this? And what is the $40,000 needed for?
Okay, so the $50,000 is just for RKG to do the zoning recodification. Recodification means that they are reorganizing the zoning bylaw, they are cleaning it up, they are getting rid of inconsistencies, they are changing or eliminating lots of illustrations that are in the zoning bylaw, they are making it easier to read, making it sort of more user-friendly. How many of you at the table have looked at the zoning bylaw? Okay. How many of you who have your hand up liked what you saw? We'll just say liked. How many of you understood what you saw? Okay, so that's generally where we stand when it comes to the zoning bylaw. The idea of this process for $50,000 is to buy the fully recodified zoning bylaw. It's basically a cleanup of the language of the zoning bylaw, making sure it complies with case law, helping us with the public outreach. We'll have 3 drafts, so 3 readings and hearings that they'll come to, but we won't get any farther than that. It's not going to cover the legal fees, and then it also does not cover policy issues, and that's why there's the second request, which I can get into more, but I think there's a question.
John?
Are the, I don't know what you call them, but R0, R1 is those regions, are they going to change at all in the zoning bylaw?
That's a very good question. That's a policy issue, and we are not addressing policy issues at this time. And so that is why we are thinking about, and we've always envisioned for a second phase of this work, and probably a third phase as well. The master plan, which is a fabulous guiding document, provides a land use policy and vision for us, but the zoning doesn't exactly match it. So if we wanted to make changes to R0 or R1 or R7 even, those are policy conversations that we are not having as part of just cleaning up the zoning bylaw. Cleaning it up literally meaning making it easier to read, more usable, and having it comply with current case law. So it won't be addressed right now.
Okay. Let me just make a comment if I may.
Please.
Almost never as a town meeting member get a call from many of my constituents, but in the last year or so, I had, my wife and I both at town meeting, we had calls from order of 3 or so people, all of them in one way or another complaining about the fact that a house has been raised on a piece of land and a bunch of bigger houses there. It's out of scale for the neighborhood, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Is there any way to address that issue? I'm at a loss myself to figure out what one can do about it. I'm wondering, is there any thought being given to that?
I'm glad to address it if you'd like me to. So we, at a resolution of Springtown meeting last year, we formed a residential study group, which is housed under the Master Plan Implementation Committee. That is a very diverse, robust group of people who are meeting very regularly to address the issues of impacts of new residential construction in existing neighborhoods. And actually, for this Springtown meeting, they're proposing 5 warrant articles that will look at and get to many of these concerns, including driveways, and some of the issues around driveway being driveway grade, and then a whole suite of issues that will address the construction controls. So basically allowing neighbors to have a little more control and understanding over the types of construction that's happening in their neighborhood. But there's many other policy issues that could be addressed, and they're not being addressed right now because we wanted to wait until we cleaned up the zoning bylaw before we actually get to the part about, do we want to do design issues? Do we want to address dimensional and density issues and things of that nature? Those are more policy questions that we do want to get to, but we need a second phase of work. And so that's, if I might then, the $40-some thousand that's remaining, because of the other costs being variable and not knowing exactly how much it will be. We've got and this comes right out of the master plan. All these ideas are generated by the master plan, including, frankly, addressing the residential zoning issues. The future list of land use policy and zoning work includes things like this. Reorganizing and consolidating the business zoning districts and updating the corresponding zoning map. I don't know if anybody's seen a zoning map before, but it's a very, it's conjuring up rainbows when you start thinking about it. So think of a rainbow, and that will lead you to think of the zoning district map. It is very colorful because there are zoning districts everywhere, and there's not a lot of sense or rhyme or reason about many of those zoning districts. So one thought is that maybe there's some consolidation that's needed, particularly around the business zoning districts, and some reorganization that would then lend itself to improved design guidelines, improved sign guidance in those particular businesses, right? Business districts. Right now, it's very jagged in terms of what the zoning actually looks like. The second idea is addressing density and design issues throughout town. So for all zoning districts, things like lot requirements, intensity of development, which is kind of the stuff that you're talking about as well, and other people have talked about with me too. Minimum yards, building heights, open space requirements, lots of different things. Zoning overlay district for the Millbrook corridor, which is the corridor that runs through town. Some of it's daylighted, some of it's not. But to create more connectivity and really understand how we can better utilize that very underutilized natural asset. And then the last one would be, and these are just illustrative, but directly from the master plan, update of the environmental design review regulation. The environmental design review regulation is actually the special permit process that the Arlington Redevelopment Board uses when approving or reviewing developments. And it's had a sporadic updates, but it needs a full-on redo. So just looking at those 4 potential options, and given my past experience providing guidance and technical assistance to communities and knowing the costs of things, it's roughly about, to get all of that done would be like $49,000. We would prioritize what would need to be done with the Master Plan Implementation Committee, the Zoning Recodification Working Group, the Arlington Redevelopment Board, and others. But we think we can actually get a pretty significant portion done in FY18. But again, it's somewhat contingent upon that variable cost for the legal fees. So that's, I know that's a lot to process, but basically the legal fees are the follow-up to the zoning recodification that we want to get done in fall. We think it could cost anywhere up to $15,000. Once we're done with that process, we would put out an RFP for another consultant to help us with one or some number of these types of policy amendments. And it could cost up to $49,000, depending upon how much is remaining. We would gear it towards that and prioritize accordingly. And that work would be concluded at the end of FY18.
Okay, so we're in the fall special town meeting. This is strictly to take care of this.
Just that.
So we need, obviously, the $50,000 you already have.
Got it.
You need $15,000 or so for the advertising.
Yes.
To get that done. And then the balance of the 40 is from the special town meeting onward.
Correct.
Strictly around policy issues.
Policy, yeah. We could start it earlier, but I think it would be unwise. I think we need to complete the zoning recodification process, get that done, get through the special fall town meeting, and then move on to the really all these different policy issues that people talk about and prioritize them accordingly. So that's our
Okay.
proposal.
Any questions? Dean?
I guess it's more of a comment, and I could be wrong here, but just from my time.
It hasn't happened yet, Dean.
Yeah, I know. From my time in town, I think you might run a risk of doing the recodification first, of ending up with a product, after you go through the policy, of ending up with a mess on your hands. And the reason I say that is, in my time in town meeting, and many people who have been in town meeting longer than me, the reason the bylaws are a mess is because we probably had a nice streamlined set of zoning bylaws, and then, 10 people don't like leaf blowers, so they put an article and they shoehorn it in and they say, let's ban leaf blowers, right? And it just goes right in, and it's not anywhere else. And then the zoning board, then you'll have another article from the manager or the ARB because something we did is no longer legal, so we gotta rip it out and blah, 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 right? And so I think the problem you have with recodification first is you recodify and you get this nice streamlined set of bylaws.
Yeah.
Then you haven't fixed all the policy issues. And so when that comes around again, you're just gonna start jamming stuff back in. But that would just be my observation, is you could be sitting here in 2 years with all these policy things haven't gone through and it's a total mess again.
It's a possibility. I mean, some of these things could be, one of them is an overlay district. The other one is the update to the environmental design review guidelines. Those are basically, it would be deleting, let's say with environmental design review, that's deleting section 1106 and replacing it with a new one. So that's not as difficult. Getting into like the weeds of the use tables, that's where things get complicated. But actually in the recodification, what we're proposing to do is to really, really simplify that use table and the dimensional and density regulations. So once that's simplified, I do think that if there are edits and when there are edits in the future, even to your point, the ones that get shoehorned in, they won't look as out of place.
The part of the codification is creating a process to actually amend the documents
That's
without
right.
being.
Exactly, yeah. But I do hear what you're saying. It's never, I mean, you could say like, it would be great to do everything all at once, but we aren't at the place where we've prioritized all those policy issues just yet. But I do hear you.
And of course, the reason we have the current bylaw that was created in 1975
Yes.
was basically to set the zones to cover everything that was there at that time.
Exactly. Same thing with the zoning, just the map.
Yeah.
That's why it looks that way, yes.
Peter, you want?
Yeah. Danny, could you say something about how the working group would actually supervise this operation?
Sure.
Would it meet every week or quarterly, and how would they work through you to influence or direct KGB?
Sure. So right now, the way that it's working is, I would say the working group is meeting every 2 weeks with the RKG. And then right now, the Master Plan Implementation Committee has agreed to meet quarterly since they formed. That could be more frequently if they so desire. But I would think that the same procedure would be happening. We'd be meeting every 2 weeks. People want to meet more often. I'm always open to that. Sometimes what's happened is we've formed subgroups of the working groups, like to focus on a particular, issue that people find of interest and they want to, dive into a little bit further. Say people, like 3 out of the 10 people really care about community engagement and have some great ideas about what we could do. Those 3 people might meet separately more often, but I would say, generally speaking, that the influence that the group would have is in their meeting every 2 weeks, or of course always talking to me should anything come up.
And that's with a representative of the contractor?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is part of the recodification process have plans to integrate, or I say integrate, or at least plan to integrate with the town GIS system and the permitting process, and a way to sort of automate and make things more transparent that way?
Yes.
Could you describe that, please? That's exciting.
I got so excited about that. So one of the things that's happened is actually, and I only have 5 copies of this, but I can give it to Liz. Yeah. But if you're interested. So we have had, so far in the first phase of work that RKG has completed, they've conducted interviews with key stakeholders, they've held a focus group, and they just came out of an all-board meeting. All boards that relate to land use permitting and development issues. So if the Finance Committee wasn't part of it, it's just because there's no land use piece. So you didn't think it was every board and commission. The boards were just related to land use policy. So we had the Board of Health, we had the Conservation Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Arlington Redevelopment Board, the Historical Commission, the Historic Districts Commission, and staff that help those various boards and commissions as well, and the town manager. With the consultant at a 2-hour meeting, and this is just sort of the report out from that. And a lot of it came back to, we need to address permitting, we need to streamline some things, get sort of better organized. So yes, that is going to be addressed through this process that we're having right now, through the recodification. And how will that relate to the GIS? I don't know exactly how yet. We are definitely in constant conversation with Adam Karowski, who's right in the planning and community development, like housed there. So we're on it. We know that it's really important. And it's really important to the boards, actually.
Because the
not just the staff.
More than just a big PDF of laws on it.
Yes. Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge for you is going to be putting the material out before the special town meeting, and because we have a lot of lawyers and lawyer wannabes in the town meeting who will, who will just want to know about every comma.
Yeah.
So that'll be a challenge for you.
Yeah, shall, I understand. Yes.
Okay.
No, but we've, in all seriousness, we actually have the first and second and third readings with the intention of having public meetings around those times, and that for Springtown meeting we'll have some sort of update so that people will become aware of the work that's been done to date. Won't be an entire reading, but it will be something made available.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, that's great. I
Okay.
want to thank you very much for
You're
coming.
welcome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me and asking.
Don't
And
forget to take
I
most
will
of
take
your
all of my
master
plans if you'd like me to. Well, it's happens.
So we have one.
Yeah, please. Take it easy. And I'll send you.
Okay, so next group out? Okay,
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, the next one's the Harry Barber program. So that's Article $50. Hi.
Hi.
Yep, come on.
How are you?
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So this is on Article 50, which is the Harry Barber program. So if you can introduce yourself and sort of give a brief overview. We've gone through this before, so
We have.
don't have to huge detail.
All right, well, good. Thank you very much. I'm Susan Karp. I'm the Executive Director of the Arlington Council on Aging. And the Harry Barber program that, first of all, thank you for having me here. Certainly have appreciated FinCom's as well as the town support on this particular program. It's been in place for well over 10 years. For those that you remember Harry Barber was really quite an individual who engaged in in the town and as far as civic engagement. And so this particular program was created in honor of him, as well as to encourage others in the town of Arlington to participate. We have been very fortunate in having 10 slots available for individuals in the town, both homeowners as well as renters, to participate not only in a civic engagement within the municipality, but also to provide a small stipend as well. The way that the stipend works, it's is based on minimum wage. So we have extraordinary retirees in the town of Arlington that are willing to come into the fold at $10 an hour to participate in this program. So it's been very successful. We've been able to encourage people that otherwise might not have been interested in doing it. We provide a very safe and comfortable environment with regards to welcoming and encouraging, and we even do teaching.
Okay.
So
Now, do you have, how many of those slots are filled now?
as we sit, I have got 7 slots that are filled. And I anticipate that we will reach 9 or the full 10 at the end of the fiscal year. So what that means for us this year, so we have 10 slots, 750 each. So the stipend is $750, based on minimum wage of $10. So minimum wage now is 11, but at the start of the fiscal year it was 10, and that's how we set it. It requires an individual to participate about 73 hours during the course of their engagement. They are treated like contractual employees, so they are not town employees. They actually sign an agreement so that they see themselves as a contractual employee, and we treat them as employees. And they're placed, this year actually, they're placed within Health and Human Services. So we've had folks directed to Veteran Services, we've had folks directed to AYCC, and then selfishly, as well as based on their own requests, they've been in the Council on Aging. So the kinds of things that they're doing are things that a paid employee would do. So for administrative tasks, we might have individuals come in, they may be answering phones, they may be helping, and this is in the Council on Aging, they may be selling van tickets, they might be selling taxi tickets, helping individuals register for programs within the Council on Aging. On the financial side, I've got one individual that helps us record all of the cash collections for the CDBG grants. So we take the information that he's able to input into a spreadsheet. We have second verification just for audit control, and then we submit it to Ginny, actually, or Ginny's department for reimbursement of the grants from the CDBG. We've got people helping over at AYCC, Arlington Youth Counseling Center, that answers phones, as well as doing some filing. So these individuals, as retirees in the town of Arlington, not only bring their experience from their own careers, but they still bring the energy of an older adult. And those individuals also help the different departments take on some of the other roles, so that some of the what I refer to the back burner, or some other things that the paid staff can come forward to do. It is a very, it's been a very successful program. And I would like to point out this year, so Articles 22, 23, 24, and 25, which you may have seen earlier. I'm not sure if you...
Yeah.
Okay. So this particular program, we'd still like to have it in place. It is going to be a companion to the Senior Work-Off Program that is a formal program under Mass General Law. Harry Barber will assume it will be a program for renters, not homeowners.
The Harry Barber will.
The Harry Barber is going to, because the other program I think it's Article 22, which is the formal senior work-off program, will be for homeowners, and the offset to their time that's accrued will go against reducing their residential real estate tax. So I'd like to make that distinction, since you've seen those articles, and I'm here looking for the $7,500 that was approved in previous years.
Up till now, you've used it for everybody, for both renters and owners.
That's correct. And we did that because what we were seeing is that we had renters that were wanting to stay in Arlington. And it's tough because rents go up and money is tight. And so by incorporating both renters and homeowners, we are actually getting a better mix of Arlington retirees.
Okay, are there any questions? John?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes. These articles, 20, in the 20s, 23, 24, 25, it would seem to me that managing that work, assuring that it's being done, et cetera, implies that there be some responsibility on the part of the town employees to oversee that the work is in fact being done. How would that be accomplished? How would that happen?
Well, the way that it's accomplished at this point in time, so we go out to the different departments or the different division heads that are interested. So just like an employee, there is a little bit of a job description. I mean, it really is treated like an employee, although it's a contractual employee. So there's a job description, there's duties that are assigned. The individual who is the Harry Barber participant is made fully aware of who they go to for questions and answers, and it really runs quite well.
So these things, Article 22, 23, et cetera, they would be in the same mold as what's going on right now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So it really, so that the Veterans Work-Off Program and the Senior Work-Off Program, the Harry Barber Program, all three of those programs are managed in the same way. So at this point, I'm the go-to person. I'll be the program manager for all three of them. But we do look for other municipal departments to participate.
I mean, you only got 7 out of the 10 done up to, this is February. Now, all of a sudden, how are you going to get all these new people employed?
Well, these are for next
Guessing
fiscal
there'll be
year.
a rush, but
We'll actually go out to the other departments.
yeah.
This year, I'll be honest, with all the changes that we've had in Health and Human Services, so for those of you that haven't been in our office, I'm a part of Health and Human Services, so the back office, what I refer to as the back office, is the Board of Health. The front office, which is myself, is the Council on Aging. So we really did, we were moving parts this summer and in the fall with all the different changes. So we had Jim Feeney, who was in Board of Health. He went into the town. He helped with recreation. We had some people out on medical leave. So what I had intended on doing on the first of the fiscal year is actually knocking on the doors of my municipal partners to say, all right, we're going to help you create job descriptions, and we'd like to see about placing the individual there. That piece didn't happen, but they have actually, the individuals have actually asked to be in my department. So we try to place the applicant where they, not only their skill set, so it's an interview. So when they come in to me, to kind of backtrack a little bit, there's a little application that they fill out. First of all, I have to verify that the income requirements, that they are within that guideline. So I verify that with tax returns or with Social Security statements. I have them fill out a little program sheet to find out where their interests lie. It's important for me, as well as to the applicant, that they're placed where they not only feel comfortable, but that you want it to be a good experience for both the department as well as the individual. I mean, that's the goal. So we do a little bit of vetting that way. Coming for the next fiscal year, for all these others, you put it out there and you can find people. It is going to take a lot of work. This particular program for Harry Barber, I come to the Finance Committee to ask for approval to have you funded. The other ones are coming out, it's not coming out of the budget in the same way. So did I answer your question?
Well, I guess so. What this means is that they're essentially working off the taxes that they owe. Is that correct?
Well, if we can focus on Harry Barber, so Harry Barber is, again, it encourages civic engagement. It is a stipend position, so those that are homeowners would take the money and either use that money for their real estate taxes, or they may use it for some other expense. For a renter, they would use it to defray any of the expenses that they might have. In comparison to Article 22, which is the formal senior work-off program under Mass General Law. So Harry Barber is not under Mass General Law. That particular program is. It actually has to go against the real estate taxes. So those program rules are different than Harry Barber with regards to that. They both are working underneath an umbrella of civic engagement, but the actual payment, one goes into the check in the hand of, so Harry Barber, they actually receive the check. The senior work-off program, it is to defray the taxes. So they don't get to keep it in their checking account. The credit, if you will, is taken.
I guess my question was, for the Article 22, let's say, who's going to manage that? Is that you?
That's me.
That's you?
That's me.
Because you may have quite a number of people there, right?
Well, I manage the program piece. So just like Harry Barber, the program piece comes into me, and then I work to place the person with someone else. So that someone else is a municipal department. So for example, Jeff Chunglo in Veterans. Jeff supervised a Harry Barber participant, and that person worked with Jeff to take care of whatever project that he was working on. Colleen Legier in AYCC. Colleen is the department head, or the division head, but she had another staff member work with the Harry Barber participant. So each department finds the point person for this individual. The responses have been very positive, and people really like to come back. They feel as though they're more a part of the town instead of retired and off just in their house. And
on the other side, I've heard positive comments too. People who have supervised these people, the Harry Barber people, they were all quite pleased.
They are, because they're just like you and I, but at different stages in their life. And I really enjoy the perspective, so I'm selfish that way. I really like it when they're in, because we're a high intern site, so I've got all kinds of generations in my office. You had a question?
I do have a question. I'm actually personally have some interest in this from the perspective of I'll be retiring soon. I've been in the financial community for decades.
Good.
And it was suggested that I look into something like this. But the reason I prefaced what I just said is, is there a way to segment or separate the Harry Barber portion that's really handled with stipends versus somebody who just wants to come in and volunteer a day a week? Maybe
yes.
help elderly people with their tax returns or and the like, something of that sort. And then the second part of that would be, we talked earlier about another program here, but how are you making use of the town's website so that people can get an idea of which direction to go if they have an interest in one or the other?
You know, you brought up a really good point. So the website, we are finally taking care of that. So ours looked pretty bland, and we've started adding more information, but we also now have, Joan Roman helped us put together a Facebook page. So we're getting more of that information out there. So the way that these programs are advertised, I've been working with the assessor's office and the treasurer's office so that they know that these programs exist. So if people are coming in for exemptions, for example, and they're making some comment about how hard it is, you know, to make their real estate payments. So we're getting referrals that way. This is in our newsletter. But as far as which direction someone wants to go with regards to the different programs, it really is a conversation. I speak with people all the time because we have, you know, through the CDBG funding, the Council on Aging has a volunteer coordinator. So that role generates over 130 volunteers per year. So you have people that do anything from maybe, you know, five hours a year upwards of, in some cases, 15 hours a week that are in the office just as volunteers. We also have individuals, and what's really nice about the Harry Barber program is that oftentimes we have people coming in with the Harry Barber because, you know, it's nice to have an extra $750, even though in your mind you'd really like to volunteer anyway. And individuals that are on this program often stay in our office and volunteer throughout the year. And their comment is that it's a great environment, which it is. And every day is different. Every hour is different. So you've got that profile of a person. And that profile of that person is also indicative of the senior work-off program, because some people are just civically engaged automatically. So if you're going to be out there, why not do that? Because your town is addressing those that are 60 and over in the community. I mean, we all can say, gee, it feels like that sometimes that we aren't recognized as we get older. And when you look at these articles that are presented this year, we've really gone to bat with as many things that are both under Mass General Law, as well as to continue to support the Harry Barber program. And that's really, my goal here tonight is to impress upon you the value that even though we have these other articles out there tonight, or that you've seen and I've mentioned, is that this Harry Barber program is a valuable piece, because if we only do things for homeowners, what is the value of those that sell their home and are renters and want to be in this community? This is a great community, and as such, with the demands of trying to get into the community, that also can put the pressure on the rents, which people do not have to leave. And an extra $750, it also gives people an opportunity to come into our office, and we might be able to connect to social services. So, we try to finagle every which way we can to get in front of somebody to make sure that that education piece of what we do, not only how we serve others, but how we can serve the person in front of us. So it's going to take some conversation. So when you're ready, you come in.
So what you're saying is still that the first step is to go to the town's website, and then there'd be a segue or a link to more defined community service program, of what part of which is the Harry Barber program.
Right, but the website is really only one piece. If anybody calls, I take the phone call and I spend the time with anybody to explain the difference. And to tell you the truth, sometimes you just come in as a volunteer and you want, you can dip your toe, but the municipality is a large organization in itself. And what we're also working on is helping to create job descriptions, if you will, because to answer your question, when it comes to supervising, the one thing that gets a little uncomfortable is like, oh, well, we don't have a job description. And all those things take time, but through our volunteers, we have retired professionals that have been in the human resource background. So they can help, so we pull in all kinds of resources to get the job done. But you can't just figure it out all on the website. Sometimes it takes a phone call into our office, and whether it's Bill Murphy is the volunteer coordinator, whether it's myself. I've also trained the Chris Angel, who's my administrative assistant. So if she tries to give out the information as well. But we really do try to hit all areas.
Are you? I'm sorry. Are you finished, Bill?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you limited to? 10 hours, if Public Works calls up and said, we don't have the manpower, but I really need somebody to walk up and down Mass Ave and pick up trash.
They can do that. They can do that.
Okay. Or if I need somebody right away for a whole week, full time, for 1 week, to do X, you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we get the applicants. I actually had one 3 years ago that did their time in about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it really, you give me somebody that has an interest, and I'll work hard to match for the department. I mean, I believe in it. I'm one of those crazy, silly people that, you give me something to do and we'll see it done. But it truly is a fabulous program. I wish that we could have 20 spots.
Yeah.
But maybe that's next year.
With the other one, you will.
Right. So we'll see with that.
Yes, so is there any other questions? Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and your civic engagement. So Liz, this is Liz's. I had to borrow Liz's.
Oh, okay, just leave that there. Okay, we got a few things we could get done. First of all, I went through my entire computer and I looked at like the last 15 years of town reports I think it was, well, maybe 10 years. And I could not find a picture of of Bob O'Neill's plaque. And now I know that probably we did it up. In fact, I remember we did it up just on a piece of paper, a Word document, you know, with the round it and the wording and all that. So maybe, and again, this would have to be back in the mid-90s. If you go back into your FinCom folder, if it goes way back, this is a long shot. You know, take a look at it tonight or tomorrow.
It got lost somehow?
I'm sorry?
The plaque is lost?
They lost it.
It's over in Chelsea at one of the junkyards.
Yeah, probably. I think it's an outrage that a contractor
Yeah.
would take that down and not treat it as something decent. So I guess what I'm asking is, it's not only just a picture of the plaque, but maybe you have a picture of the mock-up that we did just on a Word paper that is in the bottom of your FinCom filing from, God, 20 years ago. And I'm open for any other suggestions.
Can I put on my detective's hat?
Okay.
When we were in this room and we had the plaque, we also had a 3-drawer file here that was for the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
Where did the file go? Chances are, if you find the file cabinet, you might find the plaque, because the plaque might be in the file cabinet.
You know, I haven't checked our FinCom. We used to have a FinCom office. Now we have a FinCom closet. But that might, okay.
It's a thought.
Yeah, no, FinCom office for,
Wasn't that down at town hall?
How many?
That filing cabinet wasn't in town hall?
No, it's here.
now, Alan, you brag.
It's here for years.
But that was before my time. But the other thought I had was that
The
we
3
had at least a couple of
Behind
years
the,
of ACMI recording in here.
Yeah.
And someplace in those ACMI videos, there's probably a shot that we might be able to look.
Because a lot of times I think it was over in that
Yeah, it
corner.
might be too far away to see.
No, it was always here, right there.
Right.
The camera was always there, so we
Yeah.
could show.
Are you talking to the camera?
Oh, camera, yeah. But the plaque was always up right there.
Right, right.
Sometimes they
So you
shot
could
it
have
from
picked
there.
up on the camera.
Particularly if it was over there. and-
Yeah, but the problem was apparently, I think we were 2012 and 2013, I think, were the years that it was done. And unfortunately, the ACMI server apparently blew up, and those, they're no longer available streaming, so he's going through a lot of DVDs. So
Yeah.
it might be something there, it'll take a lot of mining.
Yeah, and the trouble is, of course, whether, you know, it's got a close enough picture that you could read the text.
Right.
You know, I suppose we could try to reinvent the wheel, but, so everybody, you know, take a look at your old computers and your old everything, and, you know, maybe Dick, maybe you were taking a selfie and it's right behind you. Okay, so.
If you need a plaque design from scratch, I'll volunteer a graphic designer to do it.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask Liz to email out, maybe she's done this already, the minutes from last time, the contact list, and the calendar. So it seems to me a lot of times we're generating a lot of paper. I know with the minutes, I take a look at the minutes, we do them for that time, I get home and I toss them. Because I don't save them, because all I have to do is go on the website if I want to see the minutes. So my thought is that Liz sends them all out, or Peter, you send them out when you got it done. People could review it at home rather than the few seconds you have at the beginning of the meeting. And you know, you could make a copy yourselves, but we're not constantly putting 21 pieces of paper in front of you that get tossed when you get home. So.
This thing costs $120.
Yeah, well.
Okay, everybody could bring their own laptop.
Well, it might be, I was gonna say, it might be a change, but if we
I
push
get
this
my
table.
mail on here.
Well, but also, if we push this table down that way,
Yeah.
we now have an overhead that looks like it goes onto a screen. So we could hook a computer right up probably to that.
Yeah. Okay, let's think about that.
You do both. I mean, you know,
Pressure's on.
it's great to get this on my device, see
Yeah.
it before I come in. And then once we're all gathered, I like the idea of having it there for viewing.
Okay.
Or even the budget can go up there.
Yeah. Okay, so for now, she'll be sending them to you. You can print them out if you want to. You could not print them out if you don't want to. But, you know, this way, you know, Peter, you won't be bringing in 21 pieces of paper. It seems to me it would save a little bit. So she and Peter will be doing that with things into the future. With the calendar, you know, if there's a lot of changes, she'll send out a new version. Otherwise, you can just sort of write the changes in. So we all have our calendars.
While you're on that, Alan, agendas. According to the open meeting law, we're supposed to have agendas. Does the calendar, you think that would be sufficient placement? Supposed to be public.
You know, also, I think I should.
Well, we do put the agenda on the website.
Yeah. But I think I said that the first week and not this week.
Okay, so so we have to have the calendar. You know, whatever you think is necessary for the open meeting law to post, as far as the minutes. I'm not quite sure your question.
Well, I was talking about agendas. I'm not aware that we have agendas other than the calendar.
Well, the calendar is just the dates and who's coming in at what point. The agendas that we post will have that same information, but just for the next meeting.
Okay.
So it's only that one. Now, I think we could probably take votes. The arts, we're going to have on the February 22nd that public arts people are coming back in. I'd like to save discussion on Article 44, the one that we heard first, until the 22nd. Just my sort of observation here is I think this is about a year too soon. It seems to me they haven't put together their group yet. And we have all these groups with their separate websites. I just think it needs a lot more work on that. Alan?
Well, if you remember, last year ATED came in with a very similar request, and you know, I proposed at the time that was a different model. And since then, I've been working with people, with Ted Peloso and Barbara Goodman and people like that, and we're actually putting together a site called tourarlington.org. And the perspective of that is not representing an organization, but to be the first place to go for visitors, tourists, new residents, as an umbrella to find things. And the concept is that it'll be an index to all the existing websites, but where a website doesn't exist, it would fill in the gap. And it's a, you know, again, a private organization, a sponsorship model. It's a different way to approach that, but there are, you know, other efforts going on.
Could this feed into that?
Absolutely.
John?
If I may say so, I was hoping that the tourism, what you like to call it, initiative, might be a focus for this whole business.
What's in process? Again, it's a different perspective. Instead of representing an organization out to the public, it's the public looking for the organizations. So it's a different way to do it. It's to find the audience and what that audience wants to see.
Yeah.
And again, a different business model. It's not publicly financed. It's not taxpayer financed. It's sponsorship financed.
Is there a link to the town website?
There will be a link to every website that exists. And in terms of content management, there'll be a paid content manager. There'll be commissioned sponsorship developers. And there'll also be an element of crowdsourcing for, you know, if you have an event, you go to a contact form, you put it in the event. So there'll be, even though there'll be curated content, there'll also be like ACMI's, you know, public announcement bulletin board will be the idea if you're doing something or you open a new store, you send it and it goes onto the website. So it's a model facing from outside in instead of inside facing out. but I think it's a better, in any case, that is in the process. The intended launch is Patriots Day, frankly. But it's tourarlington.org.
Okay, so,
And it's very complementary to this. There's nothing wrong with individual groups having their own little websites, but there needs to be this umbrella that, can point to the Historical Society, point to the Old Schwab Mill, point to the Dallin Museum, point to ATED, point to the Chamber of Commerce, point to the Council on Aging, point to the police station. Everything that somebody needs to know if they don't know where to go for something.
okay, when do you think this will be set to go?
And we're intending to launch on a Patriots Day.
Okay, well, seems appropriate. Okay, then before, or we'll revisit this on April 22nd when the other group comes back in, which I think actually are the same people. Think about maybe flesh out in your mind the way this might tie together. Now, who's paying to maintain it, or who will pay it?
Sponsors.
I'm sorry?
Sponsors.
Okay.
Unnamed sponsors.
Do you have them yet?
Some.
You mean like retailers, is that the sort of thing you mean by?
Yeah, local businesses.
Yeah, okay.
And the idea is many sponsors at a low level, rather than going back to the usual suspects who, write checks for thousands of dollars, better to get 100 businesses at not $100 at $50 a piece.
Yeah. Okay. OPEB and the 52 and 51, we'll leave that for Charlie and his group to come back and make their recommendations on that. However, I think we could discuss and vote on Article 38, which is the recodification that Jennifer, right? Jennifer went through. So the request for the appropriation is $55,000, of which $15,000 will be needed approximately for advertising, and then the balance of the 40 to take further on as far as policy recodifications and such. So that's sort of the second phase. So what do you think?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Is there a discussion? Okay, Dean?
Who are we giving the money to?
I'm sorry?
Who are we giving the money to?
This will be expended under the direction of the town manager. It's a town manager article.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering. Isn't the redevelopment board doing the work?
But the redevelopment board sort of works under the, well, actually, the planning and community development works under the direction of the town manager. So,
Okay. So I haven't gone to the
be under the town manager.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I was impressed with her. I thought she
Yeah.
really knew what she was talking about.
Yes.
I thought she knew.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, the motion has been made and seconded for an appropriation of $55,000 under Article 38 for the recodification to be expended under the direction of the town manager. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Favorable action to 855. Okay, Harry Barber, 7,500 request.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded for $7,500. Is there any discussion? Actually, the push to have renters eligibility came from this board. If I remember, for those of you who have been on for a while, because they were originally just going to make it for property owners, and this board pushed them to make it for renters also, and they did it, and it's been there ever since. So, can make a difference.
No, exclusively renters, apparently.
Now it's going to be exclusively because they're doing the other one, if the other ones pass, which I'm sure they will. Any other discussion? All those in favor of $7,500 for the Harry Barber program under Article 50, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Unanimous. Okay, both times. Okay. Now, I I got the budget last meeting, and I've been going through some of the things, and I'm a little concerned with a lot of little stuff coming into the budget for the first time. The website that they're proposing really requires a continuing appropriation by the town to maintain it, even if it's only 5 or 10 hours. And considering that we are going to be facing multiple $1-million deficits starting in fiscal 2021, and I don't think that, in my opinion, the manager will never recommend even a part-time position to maintain a website like this. I just don't think it's going to happen. So that's one thing we've got to think about. But there's also others. There's Arlington Alive. There's an appropriate request for there. And there's appropriation request for Town Day and Feast of the East. There's an appropriation request for the Poet Laureate for $500. Now, I talked to the manager about this. He said that the selectmen, in reviewing Town Day and Feast of the East, their basic concern is they just don't think it's totally viable going forward without some help from the town to pay for police detail costs. So that's the reason he put that in. So I think when the town manager comes back next month, maybe we could talk to him a little bit more about that, because it's new. I asked the manager about all these committees and commissions, and why did you recommend this and why did you recommend? We said with all the committees and commissions, I didn't think it was my role. He just passed them through. So he's not taking a stand one way or the other on, the Arlington Alive, a lot of these different things. So that's up to us to do. We can nail them down a little bit more on opinion, but.
So we're gonna be the bad guys.
That's right, we're gonna be the bad guys. And all of this stuff, when you're looking at a $140 million budget, doesn't mean, if I could use the technical expression, squat. On the other hand, we're going to be going back to the people in 3-4 years for a major override, maybe even sooner than that. And we can't look like we're not controlling the budget. We can't look like we're not, we're spending money on what might be considered frivolous things. I'm not saying this is frivolous, but some people might. And we need to be able to have a good reason to recommend every penny we're recommending. So, John?
In the spirit of what Alan was talking about just a few minutes ago, of that website for tourism, which is being funded, as I understand it, by merchants, etc. Why is it that the Feast of the East couldn't be done in a fashion like that? Which is to say, it benefits, it would seem to be, the restaurants, etc. Why don't they pony up for the police details, etc.?
Well, I don't know much about the financing for Feast of the East. Alan, do you?
Well, actually, I don't either. I don't know. I mean, Town Day has some booth charges, but I just wanted to mention in the last 5 years or so, there's developed a funding source called crowdfunding for things like Kickstarter and whatever. And in some sense, if you have a project to put up a sculpture or something that's not involved in public safety and operations or whatever, if you can't find 100 people to each kick in $20, then maybe it's not worth doing. On the other hand, if you have something that's popular and has a lot of public support, it's pretty easy to raise an enormous amount of money through crowdsourcing, through crowdfunding. So, and I guess in general, I would start encouraging some of these initiatives to go towards. I mean, the mechanism is easy. It doesn't take a lot of overhead. People raise. I mean, somebody raised $200,000 to make the best egg salad sandwich in the world. That's ridiculous. But there's a lot of money out there to be tapped into if you have something that attracts people's attention.
And I agree. In a lot of cases, it seems to me they follow the simplest path, which is to come to the public trough. Rather than go to CBG, which I asked about, or go back to Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and see about getting a grant from them. And I think we need to push a lot of these people to go and out and raise the money. So let's put together, I don't want to just say no, I want to say, here's some suggestions, here's some direction that you could go through. So take a look through the budget and see, all the little odds and ends that, that are there. Okay, I guess the final thing is, how many people have budgets for next week? Okay, what do you have?
Probably the library and most of Health and Human Services.
Okay, the library and Health and Human Services, okay. David?
The selectmen's budget, the town clerk's budget, and by next week, more than likely would be the legal budget, as well as our own budget.
Okay.
Finance budget.
Other people? Okay. Liz, do we have any hearings next week?
Not on Monday.
I'm sorry?
Not on Monday.
How about Wednesday?
Wednesday, water bodies, and then it was February 22nd for this ACA group.
Right, no, I mean just next week.
February 13th, nothing. February 15th, water bodies.
Okay, I was going to cancel next Monday anyway because I wanted to go to the Bean Pot, but my team lost, so. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do then is, I think we have enough to take one day. I don't think we have enough to take two. Well, I know we don't have enough to take two. So, Liz, we're going to, everybody, we can't, Monday is canceled. Okay, Monday is canceled. Wednesday, we'll have the water bodies, and Liz, see if you can fit anybody else in then too. And then we'll take the articles that we do have, or the budgets we do have. Okay, so Monday's canceled. Wednesday we'll try to get as much done. Now the following Monday is President's birthday, so we're not going to have it then. So please, please, please try to get some budgets for next week, additional if you can. The Wednesday after that, and then the week after that, that full week, because I'd really like to get a lot of this done as much as possible by the end. So please do the best you can, as I know you will.
We should probably be able to have police and fire by.
I'm sorry?
We should probably be able to have police and fire by the week of the 22nd.
Okay. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, is there any other business or issues?
Right.
Okay, Liz, I'd like to see you after the meeting, and Dean, I'd like to see you after the meeting.
Because that's a.
Any other? Meeting adjourned.